Good evening, Trinidad and Tobago. Welcome to another in our series of virtual campaign meetings. And tonight, I'm opening the show as the MC only to introduce some of our toughest candidates competing on the ground for your vote. And I wanted to be the one to introduce them. I'll be bringing up the rear. I'll be doing the last contribution on this show tonight. But immediately following me are some of the people who are requesting you come out on August 10th and place your vote next to the Progressive Empowerment Party symbol. And they are going to tell you why in their own words tonight.
We keep voting tradition because my grandmother said to do this. My grandmother died up in Laventille. She was a die-hard red. And look at the house she live. I wish I had a picture to show you the house she live, and she was a die-hard red. Come on. You are a citizen of a rich country. You are a citizen of a country that have natural resources. Many other countries jealous what we have. They jealous us. But yet you who born and grow in this beautiful land, you are suffering. You are getting dust. You are getting false promises. You are getting false hope. But yet every 5 years you voting in the same people. And when election gone, I'm traveling in a taxi and I'm hearing you talking about they take away this, they take away that, they didn't open opportunities, they lie to we. They keep using this story of this one thief that and this one thief that. Which is true. But where are they finding billions of dollars to spend? They spend $500 million on the Red House. $500 million. The Red House is a place of historical, importance, and we acknowledge that. But come on, $500 million could have taken care of the people of Laventille. It could have put food on our table. It could have created jobs for our young men to come off the block. $500 million. You know how much money is that? You know how much roads could have paved? You know how much schools could have been refurbished?
I am not a candidate, but I am here to represent the overseas chapters of the PEP. We have been here from the very start, and though we may not be able to vote, our hearts are here in Trinidad and Tobago. Real change is here. I am so excited for that. Albert Einstein once said, insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. So I have to ask the question, are we insane as a country? For 30 years, we have been exchanging one party for the next. Same promises, different day. And look at us now. Diversification is still a concept to us. It is not a reality. So, if we are voting for the same politicians and the same leaders, do we really expect to see different results? Now, Trinidad, hear me. I want real change, I don't want small change and short change. When you don't have water in your taps 24/7 in the 21st century, you're getting short change. When you have the world's largest asphalt lake, but you could bathe in the potholes in your road, you're getting short change. When you have fertile soil and you have to import your food, you're getting short change. I want a party that will walk the talk. I believe the Progressive Empowerment Party is that party.
I live in a constituency where the fire truck could possibly take longer, not possibly, will take longer to get to the source of the fire because either too many cars parked on the streets are too narrow. That is the reality for some of my constituents in my constituency. Is that real representation? Some people told me that that's how it has always been, but we have moved past that. Why can't we fix it? Why aren't we fixing it? We've had somebody who is in office who's asking for re-election, but yet still simple things like that were never addressed. If simple utilities cannot get to us, then what is the point of having a representative? And it goes for other constituencies as well. So why not PEP? We don't put the rest of them under any fine-tooth comb. Yeah, well, you know, all of them is thief, all of them is do this, all of them. No, that's not the correct way. They should be under the fine-tooth comb. They should be the one getting questioned, asking every detail of how our money was spent, how our funds were distributed. No more fly-by-night millionaires and billionaires. We can't even get a road paved properly. We can't get water 24/7. Our education system is in a mess. We don't grow our own food, but we don't ask them how the money being spent properly. No. It is time we sit down and understand what representation is about. Representation for us is supposed to be figuring out how to make things easier for all of us, to make it accessible for all of us.
Good evening, Trinidad and Tobago. Good evening to my residents, my constituency of Diego Martin Central. I am standing before you again tonight to talk to you, to talk directly to you as citizens of this country, as residents of the Diego Martin Central community. I have walked the ground. I have spoken to the people. I have heard their complaints. I have seen firsthand and witnessed the failures, the recurrent failures of past and present administrations to really bring sustainable development to all of Diego Martin Central. When you have to describe this constituency, you see the division between those who have and those who don't have. And it's in all kinds of aspects, in terms of those who have water, those who don't have, those who have access to disposable income, and those who have to barely get by. And I am asking you, the residents of Diego Martin Central, do you really think you deserve this? Because I don't think so. We in the Progressive Empowerment Party do not believe that you deserve to live as second-class citizens in your own country. You would have heard some of these speakers tonight talk about how rich this nation is. And while this is about Diego Martin Central, let's pull back a little bit. Trinidad and Tobago is such a blessed, rich twin island. We have some of the best cocoa in the world. We have the potential to be the food basket like we once were, exporting to the other islands, exporting to the globe, but instead we are importing. We had and still have the opportunities to diversify this economy away from oil and gas into things like agriculture, agro-processing, manufacturing. We instead are stuck with governments, past and present, who have no vision for the people. And for most of the part, they have no vision for where they would like to take this country. They have no vision for you as residents of Diego Martin Central, because can you say, besides the new buildings that they're putting up, the health center that they're rushing to finish, the community center that stands as an unopened facility, the sporting complex where the grounds remain pristine, can you really look at those things and claim that Diego Martin Central has developed? Development is about mental development. Development is about bringing up the circumstances of the residents in the community. What good is a sporting complex for $115 million if the residents cannot even afford to use it? How could you take away their residential grounds, their free recreational grounds, and tell them they now have to pay $1,000 upwards just to kick a ball, to play some hoops? When you look around Diego Martin Central, you see and you experience the absolute neglect from this present member of parliament that sits in parliament, collects a salary, but has deserted the constituency of Diego Martin Central. Everywhere, every street, every corner, the issue is always, we have the worst representation. And I know they say it's across Trinidad and Tobago, but why are we settling for this? I am here this evening, I'm here making an appeal to you, Diego Martin Central, because I am here because I know that you deserve so much better. I know that for all the wealth and potential of Trinidad and Tobago, you should not have to be living the way you're living. You shouldn't have to be putting your own piping system together just to get water uphill in Kokoja. You shouldn't have to, in Harding Place, feel as though they call you red and ready, but what do you have to show for it? You should not have, as a resident of Diamond Vale, to feel concerned that crime is spiraling out of control in Diego Martin, because the well-being of the citizens, all the citizens, whether in Diego Martin, Diamond Vale, or Harding Place, or Kokoja, or Pitty Valley, the well-being of all Diego Martin Central citizens, residents, is the reason, purpose, and function of electing a member of parliament. It is the reason, purpose, and function of that member of parliament speaking for you in office. But we don't have that. I am here this evening offering myself as that representation, as that new age representation. I could have done this under the red or the yellow, but I chose to do this absolutely disconnected from any of the corruption, of the stories that you hear of mismanagement, of 1% financiers and contractors who paying big money to these political parties, and they are the only ones reaping benefits. They are the ones building these health centers and these complexes and these community centers and reaping off of Diego Martin Central, whereas the residents are left to suffer. I would love to show Diego Martin Central what real representation looks like. I would like to bring ideas like decentralizing water management and allowing Diego Martin Central to catch, hold, store, treat, and distribute all that bountiful water that runs down the mountains into the basin that is Diego Martin Central. I would like to bring the idea that all of Diego Martin Central, all the children of Diego Martin Central, can have access to a prestige education. That at 10 and 11 years old, you don't have to go through the stress and the pressure of having to decide what your life and where your life will be in the next 10 and 15 years based on an examination that should have been outlawed decades ago. I want to be able to bring a level of comfort to the residents, knowing that should they have an issue, they don't have to burn tires or they don't have to protest. They can come to their member of parliament, and most importantly, that they can use their finger, this finger that we're going to use on August the 10th, that they can use their finger to send a message. To send a message that the decades and the years of misrepresentation and neglect, we are not standing for it anymore. To send a message that we understand now that what we have been subjected to as a so-called stronghold of whatever party, what we have been subjected to was nothing short of abuse. And that we are ready, we are finally ready as a constituency. We are finally ready to move forward. We are finally ready to take charge of our country, of our constituency, and we are finally ready to vote for real change. That we understand that the only way to move forward is to try something new, and not just something new, because every Tom, Dick, and Harry could form a political party now, but something that is bringing real ideas, real solutions, like education, like I just mentioned, and water management, like I just mentioned, and actually focused, a political party, an organization, an entity such as the Progressive Empowerment Party that is actually focused on developing the minds and uplifting the living circumstances and situations of the residents of the community, that knows that the only function when you put us in that parliament is to serve you. On August 10th, Trinidad and Tobago, and in particular, my community, my constituency of Diego Martin Central, you have that opportunity to take your democracy in your hands. You have that opportunity to determine your future and the future of your children and your children's children. I am imploring you, please, please think bigger. Think outside of party loyalty. Think outside of what you look like versus what I look like. Think outside of who you're voting for, who you're praying to, who you're sleeping with. Think outside of all of that, because after all that bacchanal and old noise, we have to live in this country, and we all have to live with what we have been dished out. And you know what? We shouldn't be taking it anymore. So think progressive. Think for the future. And on August 10th, think about yourselves and where you would like to see this country. Vote for the Progressive Empowerment Party. Vote for Felicia Holder as your representative for Diego Martin Central. I am hardworking. Everything that I put my mind to, I give it 100%. And I want you to see and know what my voice can do for you in Parliament. I want you to know that your problems, your concerns are my problems and my concerns. And I will not rest until your problems and concerns are addressed as your representative for Diego Martin Central. So don't forget, do not forget. On August 10th, save TNT, vote PEP. Thank you.
And that's what we mean by real change. Not a stunt artist among them, not a brand, not a name, not anybody chosen because you might have known them so we could use them to con you for your vote. Just good and decent people with hearts for people who've chosen to stand up and to fight for themselves and for others. And that's a difficult thing. And I'm always proud to showcase our crew, and we have a large crew. We have a substantial footprint now. By the time you see this video, you would have learned that the Progressive Empowerment Party was polled for the first time alongside the PNM and the UNC this Friday and won the poll handsomely. And that's in no small part because of these people and many others like them who are candidates for you. And the reason that you have to give them respect, I have to give them respect, is because so many people talk to me, so many good candidates, so many potentially good candidates, so many people with so much to give. They talk to me and they tell me, boy, Philip, I don't know how you do it. I don't know how you brave this, how you stand up. It's so scary in this country. Everything is so corrupt. Everything is so connected that if you stand against the government, you could be victimized and you could lose. And depending on who is in authority that have it out for you, they could do things to damage your life. So when you see people like this stand up, and stand up as strongly and as bravely. We lost a candidate after nomination day because of victimization, because of threats. I have a series of WhatsApps from a strong man whose family and business coincided and colluded, conspired to make him step away from politics. Loss of contracts, loss of earnings, loss of business. It's a real thing for a lot of people. You're making it through life and you're getting somewhere and you think, yes, I'd like to get involved and I'd like to serve. And then you step up and you realize how difficult a journey this is. These people who you've seen tonight are some of our candidates, our strong Progressive Empowerment Party candidates who've been on the road, on the ground, meeting you for months. I wonder if you notice, none of them were reading. None of them were scripted. In fact, I told them, you have one edit. For this show, you have one edit. So any of the mistakes that you make or I make, we owning them and we taking them to the TV. For the people to see that it's real people speaking to you from the heart. No scripts written by Party Central handed to them to tell them how to think and what to feel and what to say. The Progressive Empowerment Party is real change. And it's real people standing up for real change. Like you. People like you. Most of the people you saw today and most of our candidates come from the communities in which they are running for elections. And a lot of our candidates are known throughout the communities just as normal, everyday people. So, you know, in our parlance, hey, it's you. That's who you're voting for with the PEP. And there's so many good people who could have run for all of the parties, and yet I see the red and the yellow playing change, exchange of candidates now, interchangeable candidates. Moruga Tableland comes to mind, where Peter Taylor was a former PNM MP, is now a UNC handler for a candidate, and a former Mayaro MP is now UNC, is now a PNM candidate, and it's so much of that. And if anything, it shows the interchangeability of the nothingness they bring to the table. All they want is a work, and they know that. All of them know, in the PNM and the UNC, that being an MP means nothing. You go in the parliament, you sit, and every now and then they need the right face for the right story. So the party whip or the leader of government business will hand you a piece of paper and say, you reading this today. How many times you've seen members of parliament stand up and read from a piece of paper, pausing, and it's written on the piece of paper, pause here for laughter. How's any of that representation? And I want to talk about that tonight, because you see, that parliament, and I keep telling you, that parliament is the key. It's key to everything. You see, the backroom boys and the well-connected and the contract mafia and the chambers of commerce and the manufacturers association and those who get together and clink glasses and try to plan how everybody else's life should be, they should not have the kind of power they have over the parliament. The parliament is a gathering of your representatives that go to that place to discuss there how to make your lives better. Not how to enrich a few, how to make your lives better. The fact that so many people in this country have no water, in a country that gets more water from the sky than it could ever use, and that we spend $500 million every year on desalinating water when we wash the rainwater into the sea, and that no version of the parliament has ever discussed that, should tell you, the PNM and the UNC change exchange never serves you. They would change and go into office and say, okay, the last government gave you 5 grains of rice. I'm going to give you 6 grains of rice. So how am I going to give you 6 grains of rice? I'm going to build a desalination plant for $10 billion and charge you $500 million a year to desalinate your water. I'm going to give you a wastewater treatment plant for $1 billion, and hopefully we will save water and send grey water to industry and all manner of foolishness, when all we ever had to do was capture, hold, treat, distribute. We never had to send the water miles across the island. And I keep talking about that because the parliament was the place to ask. Because the cabinet, that inner cabal in the government, it was created by a king in England, where he actually had a cabinet, and he'd pick his favorite ministers to have private conversations about things that he wanted to do. And we just inherit everything, and we just copy and paste everything, so we say we're in the cabinet, and we don't even know what that means. Trinidad and Tobago doesn't need a cabinet. Trinidad and Tobago has a government, and the government's job is to manage what the people want, as discussed in the parliament. So when the representatives, and we have no rules, we pretend we have rules. If the government doesn't call the parliament to order, none of your representatives could ever speak. And if the government is in such a majority that the Speaker of the House, as one of them, ignores the opposition, then it's wasted. It's useless. Salaries for nothing. It accomplishes nothing. If the only purpose of the opposition in our system is that if the government needs a special majority, you can horse trade, then that's a waste of time. Your time. Your valuable time. 5 years at a time. Because every time you vote in our system, you're stuck with whoever you voted for 5 years. Because there's no law. that allows you to fire them. If you could have fired a government, Patrick Manning would never have seen 2007 as Prime Minister, and Kamla Persad-Bissessar probably wouldn't have survived her first 2 years. This, whatever this is, we'd have fired them in year 1. Keith Rowley and this romping rampage through the country. I mean, we have an Attorney General who's been writing laws that has been destroying human rights and eviscerating civil liberties. And a real government going into office after this government, the first job they have is to bring every law that Faris and this bunch passed, and more likely than not, repeal all. We need a proper investigation into our entire library of laws, because many of our laws, many don't apply now, and many of our laws fall short to where they should. Like the laws that govern the Integrity Commission. It sounds like a big thing. There is an Integrity Commission. Report you to the Integrity Commission. And the Integrity Commission writes the DPP. And that's another thing that sounds like it's functional. But the DPP gets the report from the Integrity Commission and 27 years passes. Somebody asks in a party half drunk, hey, what about that case? That's no way to run a country. It is supposed to trigger systems, responses, protocols. It's supposed to lead somewhere. If the Integrity Commission is a body responsible for if you are running afoul of your personal finances as a public servant, the Progressive Empowerment Party says straight up, if you are out of step where your reporting is concerned, because the majority of the people in the parliament are, the Integrity Commission should have the power to serve on the speaker a list of people who are not compliant, who cannot come into the house until they are made compliant. Because compliance is important to make sure that you're not stealing money, or you're not being corrupt, or you're not taking kickbacks. The Integrity Commission is the place that's responsible for that. But if we don't give them teeth, and we don't give them tools, then they're just a commission for commission's sake. Like the Debates Commission. We have a Debates Commission that's never held a debate. They've had one local government debate in all of their, however long they've been in existence. And the last time you saw me here, I had the red side and the yellow side with me. And I was pointing out to you things that they should have to answer to you that only a debate would make them do. And since then, the Debates Commission, no less, came out to say that they can't have a debate because of COVID-19. And I had to laugh at the level people would stoop to fool you. A debate between Keith Rowley, Kamla Persad-Bissessar, and myself could be 3 podiums like this one, social distanced, with a moderator, social distance from all of us. And all of the questions could be fielded online from the national community, and chosen at random. And the rules could be simple. Every question asked is for all 3. And all 3 have the same 2 minutes to answer. And at exactly 1:59:59, your mic goes dead. So if you can't be disciplined for 2 minutes and confine your response to 2 minutes, you can ramble on, but nobody will be hearing you. And just those simple rules of a simple debate, 3 hours long. We could break for bathroom breaks, but 3 hours long. Give the public the chance to grill us. Ask serious questions. Questions that should be asked. Like this Friday, we had an entire press conference, one of these COVID stunt meetings, and we know because the chief medical officer who found himself back in the group, who said earlier this week that it is an absolute fact that we have community spread, and it's an absolute fact that it's being brought into the country by people crossing the border, and the only people crossing the border are Venezuelans. And nobody today in anybody in that press conference realized that the Prime Minister said nothing about securing the nation's borders. In a country where the Minister of National Security could say that it is impossible to secure this nation's borders, when I could tell you that the United States of America trapped Cuba 50 years back in time by securing their borders. Nothing in, nothing out. And if you go to Cuba now, you'll find cars, stereos and TVs, fridges, stoves from the 60s. Because nothing went in and nothing went out. Cuba is about 1,000 times the size of Trinidad and Tobago. Securing this nation's borders is the easiest of exercises. We could secure these borders so properly that nothing would come in and nothing would go out except through designated ports, airports, seaports, where customs, immigration, police could be present to examine, to make sure that we are not smuggling humans. Right now, some in authority in public office in this country are benefiting from $200 per Venezuelan smuggled into Trinidad and Tobago. How is this not a national issue at a time when COVID-19 is running amok in South America? We should have shut down our borders so tight that any Venezuelan craft limping to Trinidad and Tobago would be dragged back by anchor to Venezuela. Because we're not supposed to deal with that, and this is not humanitarian. If we are not dealing with the humanitarian crisis in Trinidad and Tobago, but you're weeping for humanitarian crisis next door, when ours burning to the ground, then who's going to help us? Who's going to help us when it dawns on all of you looking at this show tonight that the amount of money that we owe exceeds our ability to earn and everything that we have saved? We are in a bad way. And we have one political party just came out of government that had no clue. I was pointing out for the first 3 years of their term in office, while we in Trinidad and Tobago was in a recession, the rest of the world was enjoying unprecedented growth. In fact, for the first time in global history, the world had 3 years of growth, expansion, everywhere but Trinidad and Tobago. So clueless were they that a world that was awash in money, that was buying anything that wasn't nailed down, we didn't know how to sell. Is it that we were trying to destroy our economy so friends and financiers with deep pockets, slush with money, could buy up everything for a song like happened with Petrotrin? Is that what we were doing? Is that what's happening to National Lotteries Control Board? Is that what's going on with TSTT? WASA? Is it that there are people out there with control access to government that is dictating the pace of play, that has broken our economy deliberately to spoil our crown jewels and reduce them to fire sale prices so that they could make off with the loot? Is that what was happening in the last 4 years, 9 months before this election? And the other side is being so irresponsible that they're making promises that they know they can't explain. I've read a document that had 4 versions of the same thing with different words, as if a spin doctor wrote the document. Economists have read the same document, have come to the same conclusion, that when you drill down to the promises, there's nothing there. You can't just say that you want to build a this and you want to build a that. Patrick Manning did that to us on the waterfront with the International Financial Center, that we thought just build it and they will come. And we built it to billions of dollars and no one came. So we stunted and we moved the parliament into the waterfront and we moved the Integrity Commission there and we moved all manner of government office to fill it, to pretend, well, it's a good thing we built it. And now we're playing musical offices because we spent $500 million on the Red House. So we're going to move back the Parliament. We move back the Parliament from the waterfront to the Red House, and we're going to spend $100 million on the waterfront to move the courts from the Hall of Justice to the waterfront. What's going to happen to the Hall of Justice? Possibly a roof rented from friends of the PNM or the UNC or both for millions a year. And then 10 years down the road, $500 million refurbishment. We can't continue like this. You can't continue like this. A time is going to come where everything's going to run out. All our credit, all our savings, and all our hope. And that time, when it comes, it's not going to be an easy thing to deal with. Because of the massive amount of our budget that goes to fake work, like URP and CPEP, people who, not for their fault, need employment in a country where the choices are so damnable and limited that security guard and French fry packer seems to be at the top of the list in a country where government doesn't understand that its principal role is the well-being of the people. And that things like jobs are important, but you need a jobs plan. And you need to be able to say, like we say, we would diversify the economy into cruise staycations. That involves building multiples of marinas in joint venture with all of the large cruise companies in the world. Now, we were saying that pre-COVID-19. Of course, the world has changed since January 31st. And that tourism is going to continue to be challenged until there is an actual cure for COVID-19. Social distancing doesn't augur well for travel. At some point, airlines and cruise industries are going to start going out of business. People are not going to pay for 5 seats. That's what's going to come down to in the economies of scale to keep the plane financially viable and socially distanced. You would need to buy the 5 seats around you. And only the very rich could do that. So we're facing challenging times where tourism is concerned. But the cruise industry is a resilient industry, and we propose to still work with them. And the reason for our belief in it, 2 of our executives are cruise industry executives, and they understand it, and they understand some of the changes that are being put in place to allow for a survival. And if there is a survival, Trinidad and Tobago, being the only tropical destination outside of the hurricane belt, could be the only tropical destination that enjoys cruise tourism staycations 12 months out of the year. We speak about a marine university that teaches shipbuilding, sail making, craftsmanship, engineering, how to build, how to maintain, how to repair all manner of marine craft. That would create an army of skilled technicians available to service the tens of thousands of pleasure craft that exist, that are stored 6 to 8 months of the year up the islands. And every time you see a hurricane, the first shots you get are the shots of the damaged boats. And those boats, if they're stored in Trinidad and Tobago, the chances of a hurricane damaging them are so astronomically small. I am sure Lloyd's of London would invest in our plan to help us become the marine craft storage capital of the world. Downstream from there, a marine university and a marine craft storage industry creates an opportunity for synergy between people who need and people who can. And when you're planning to say that you're going to offer jobs, you're going to create jobs, you need to be able to drill down to that level, So when you say that the government would create small business investment opportunities, it's for people like that. You come out of the Marine University and you have a skill set and you want to go off into your own business and you want to set up your own sail making company or your own woodworking, fine furniture woodworking that sailboats and other pleasure craft need, engineering, propellers, both marine electrical. Those are growth industries, and those people are a good group of people to invest in, and they move from employee to net employer. That is creating jobs. Diversifying the economy into agriculture means identifying what you're going to grow. We have no consumption data in Trinidad and Tobago. The Prime Minister, in his first response to a call for debate, said he don't mind as long as everything is fact-checked. And I said, fact-checked through whom? Our Central Statistical Office is 10 years behind in everything. And for critical information, they don't know the asking price from the selling price. We need to recreate consumption data based on actual imports and supermarket sales. It could be done. That's what forensic accounting is for. So you create consumption data so you know what people eat, what they buy, so that you identify those things that you could grow or we could rear in Trinidad and Tobago. And what are the downstreams from there? Agro-processing, you build an agro-processing plant, but you have no idea what you're processing, squeezing cane into juice. We need to know what exactly you're doing. Pepper mash, we said pepper mash is a growth industry for pepper spray. And Trinidad and Tobago could be manufacturing pepper spray in our duty-free facility across from Morvan, Beetham, Labantil and Sealots, where the Labas is now, which we would relocate away from there to create the largest duty-free commercial zone in the Western world and invite companies from everywhere who are interested in setting up and doing business in Trinidad. We could give them free natural gas. We're burning it now. We're throwing it away now. We could give them free Wi-Fi. It costs us practically nothing. We could give them free electricity. We should be generating electricity in our homes and feeding it back into the grid. There are people who could get in this tropical island at the end of the month, instead of getting a bill, you get a check. Natural gas, we have wind, we have solar. There are so many ways that we could generate electricity in this country that it should be free, so we could give it free to business. And that land that we're going to use is a dump. So we could give it to them for pennies, like 5 Islands and Movie Town. But we could give it to them for pennies to encourage them to come here. But only businesses that are labor intensive, so that they could come and hire our people and train our people and keep our people employed. I was explaining to somebody early in my career, I had a job with a multinational corporation. And when they hired me, there were about 7 interviews. And after I was hired, there were a couple more interviews. One of the interviews was a finance interview, and that interview said, you're coming in here at this age and you're making this amount of money. We anticipate in 3 years you'll be here making this amount of money. At this point, we'd like to set up a savings plan with you matching dollar for dollar, so that here, when you get to this point, you'll be in a position to buy a home. You see, for companies, their employees, for companies that are real companies that have growth plans, they grow on their employees, and their employees are the brain trust of the company, and they have every interest in investing in your employees. They have countries like Germany where you could take a year off from your company and get paid a salary, your full salary, knowing that when you come back, you're coming back to work there. And in a country where the government understands that jobs is the most important thing, that would create a commercial zone and create a marine industry, because that same marine industry will service the cruise industry. Our agriculture expansion will expand into providing for the cruise industry when it gets back to being a robust industry again. But shipping turnaround, that is an important industry. Restocking, gassing, fueling, fixing, repairing, servicing, cruise coming, cruise leaving. Trinidad and Tobago, again, outside of the hurricane belt, perfectly poised for that. Why have we never done that? Because oil and gas, because of oil and gas, money that flows so freely and so easily stolen, we've made mega millionaires in this country on corruption. Former government ministers dripping in gold, their children enjoying lavish lifestyles all around the world on what should really be your money. And this is our reality. And saying it ad nauseum and saying it to death does nothing for you. Hearing it again, one more time, from a different voice, does nothing for you. What you need to hear is, how do you plan to build this economy on multiples of pillars so the vicissitudes of any industry doesn't damage us and throw us into a recession? Trinidad and Tobago has never been led. We've never been managed. We've been looted. We've been mounted. We've been taken advantage of for all of our 58 years, but especially for the last 30 or so. After what I remember, and you would remember, some businessmen went to a party in Valsay and boasted that they put a couple $1 million in a political leader's hand. And when he came into, and it helped him get into office. And when he got into office, they just fed like a frenzy. And one of the things that came out of that was the entire Piaco fiasco that cost us $150 million trying to prosecute, going after the $1 billion that was stolen there. People went to jail in America, confessed to their part in the crime, paid back the money, paid their fines, and went to jail. Our people still walking free, roaming free in the gangster capital of the world. I tell people all the time, if Sanderson and Madoff had committed their crimes in Trinidad and Tobago, they'd probably be in government today instead of sitting in jail. This is not a real nation. Here, crime pays, not small crime. Not stealing sneakers and corned beef. If you steal sneakers, if you steal corned beef, if you hold up somebody for their wallet, you could end up in jail for about 20 years because our court system will facilitate your movement from jail to court and court to jail. Justice on time, moving a group of people from remand yard to the different courts that collectively have not stolen $1 million, but we're spending $80 million every year to move them around. When all we had to do, and we've known for over 20 years, is build the courts outside the jails. For less than 20% of what we spend every year moving them around, we could have saved billions of dollars. But if you save those billions of dollars, who will give the PNM and the UNC their bag of money at election time? Who? This opportunity in this election is almost ordained. It feels like everything that needs to move out of our way is being moved out of our way. For whatever reason, powers beyond my control have shrunk everybody else's campaign down to our budget because they have millions of dollars. If this was a normal election, this Saturday would have had Eddie Hart Savannah with 25,000 people, costing about $25 million to host, because it costs a lot of money to pay people to come and to put jerseys in their hand, and the ham sandwich and the juice and the maxi taxi to bring them. And on Sunday, would have had Mid-Center Mall with 30,000 for the UNC. Our next $25–30 million that comes from those financiers who puts 25 million for you, 25 million for you, because regardless of whichever one of you come into office, they take 150 million and they make back a return on their investment. Enter into all of this the Progressive Empowerment Party. Now, if this was a normal election, you would have had your Eddie Hart and you would have had your Mid-Center Mall, and on the next day, the Progressive Empowerment Party would have had a fold-up shop. Because we don't have deep pocket finances, we're not engaging in corruption. So we couldn't have had one of those mega pay for your audience rallies so that the media could have do the drone shot, look at people. We would not have been able to have that, so it would have been back to one of those two. This year, they can't do that. COVID-19, the silver lining for you is that it has removed the ability for them to politically stunt, and they have to talk policy. to you, and they try to get away from that. They wiggle free. They got a nomination day and they put carnivals on the road and they put music trucks on the road and hundreds of people ramaging instead of talking to you policy. So the powers that I have no control over has decided to drown Trinidad in rain. So you can't stunt. So the only thing that you could do is come to the people on TV and on social media and on radio. And there's only so much rah-rah-ray-ray they're going to take. At some point, the people are going to realize that the Progressive Empowerment Party is talking so much fact and so much sense that perhaps we've been taken for a ride all along. Even if I don't like Philip Alexander, even if I don't think he's the most politically sexy politician I've ever seen, it doesn't matter, because the words coming out of his mouth time and again, no matter how shackled my brain, my ears hearing it and saying, damn it, man talking sense. Why are we not capturing the water? Why throw it in the sea and then spend $500 million to desalinate seawater? How is it possible that Mokorapo Secondary could be a failed school across 2 lanes of pit from Fatima, a prestige school, if they're on the same curriculum, if they get the same teachers from the same teachers training college, if they have the same Ministry of Education? How could one fail? And how do we end up in a prestige school system where a certain percentage of children could make a list so they could fail the exam and still end up in prestige, and somebody who does well end up in Mokorapo? So what's the point of the SEA? And why are we defending it? Must everything be failed? Must everything in Trinidad and Tobago be corrupt? And at what point do you say, okay, I've heard you, you've been making sense, every policy that you advocate makes sense, you are obviously strong, they've tried to crush you, under the weight of a slew of lawsuits and defamation matters, and you've survived that. You've survived the worst character assassination and assault on a person's name anybody has ever seen. You survived that. You're still standing. Not only that, but no matter how much they try to pigeonhole you as a minor party and a small party, you come out with 28 candidates. Something that all of the other parties outside of the red and the yellow have not been able to do. They've not been able to do it. The Congress of the People has fielded 4, the MSJ 5, the ILP 1, the Patriotic Front none. And they all could tell you, DPTT with Steve Alvarez could tell you how hard it is to get a second one. There's a party in San Fernando called the Progressive Party, has 1 candidate, 19 people in his executive. Not one of the 18 wanted to step up, run for elections. Only the Progressive Empowerment Party, only this movement, represents real change. And again, I have spoken to you in ways that you could not ignore. We were offered, for our efforts, a media blackout. No one was to hear about us. People who had a conversation with somebody who had a thought about having a political party got media time that we didn't get. And anytime we got media time, it was hostile. Until even the journalists and the media workers started to feel bad about it. And I've never, ever had any media worker or journalist in my mind. I've always known that at some point, the good in each and every one of them would make its way to the surface. Right now, the Progressive Empowerment Party is everybody's darling. It's fashionable to be PEP. I see people defend me that I do not know. I see people, hundreds and thousands of people on social media standing up for me and this party that I've never spoken to in life, but people who have heard. We've done 1,500 hours of video in 4 years. And people who have heard, have seen, and watched us stay true to our message. People who went to bad talk me to other people and found out you can't say that about him. Because 20 years ago, when my child was crippled and I couldn't get a wheelchair, I couldn't get a member of parliament, I couldn't get a politician to stunt, Mr. Alexander did it. Mr. Alexander got parking for the disabled, and Mr. Alexander fought to defend it. Mr. Alexander got subventions for the orphan homes, created the Justice for Children march that forced the government to pass the Children's Authority Act and fund the Children's Authority. Mr. Alexander and the Progressive Empowerment Party and its sister organization, the Jericho Project, have been working for the homeless for decades. For decades. Every Christmas, for the past 26 years, we've fed. That's how my son grew up, spending his Christmases putting Christmas lunch in the hands of homeless people. We created a thing called care packages. Care packages, where we organize towels, personal hygiene products for women and men, shampoo, soap, razors, and give it to them a week after Christmas lunch. So it's like a Christmas present to them. Start your year off right. And a young man, a young boy, was a friend of somebody who was part of the organization. But they weren't from here, but they got a chance to do one of our outreaches with us and went abroad to the States. And this has become something that's become international now, care packages. And he said on TV that he was in Trinidad and he experienced it doing this. We've worked so hard for a better country. People will show you pictures of me marching with the PNM, standing with the UNC, being a member of the Congress of the People, trying to form the Third Force movement with Timothy Hammersmith, former Senate President, and Gary Griffith, former Minister of National Security, and his wife, Nicole Dyer, Griffith, who was a former communications advisor, ran as an independent. They show you all of that. And they use it as a means to say he's not sure of where he wants to go. When Kurt Allen sang the song Change, he ran through all the different corrupt activities that those two parties have been through and named all the people who sat right there. The former Prime Minister, Keith Rowley, told the nation in 2009 that he went to the Prime Minister in August 2003 to tell him that there was massive bid rigging taking place at Udicott and it stinks to high heaven, and that it was 10 times worse than what took place in Piaco. But I asked him, you're telling us in 2009 that you were aware of this in 2003, and for 6 years you ate cabinet food and drank cabinet wine. You didn't tell the media, you didn't tell the public, you didn't tell the Integrity Commission, you didn't report the Prime Minister or Udicott to the police. You just went along with it for as long as you could benefit from it. I have never been able to sit with that. I have been offered to run for Diego Martin Central for the red side, for Diego Martin West for the yellow side. I chose to run as an independent because I want to make a difference and I wanted to be involved, and that was the only sensible option available at the time. The Congress of the People, of which I was a member, was compromised as part of a UNC hybrid coalition. We have resisted since forming the Progressive Empowerment Party, forming coalitions with anybody, especially hasty coalitions formed just to get government. Every single day, people tell me all the different ways that I could join with BIM, join with BAM, join with Mary, join with Sam, and get yourself in. Once you're inside, you're inside. I'm not trying to get inside. We want to change how things are done in Trinidad and Tobago. This is not about political expediency. This is not just about trying to get a job. This is about informing, educating, and empowering. But it's also about us being able to bring the change that is necessary to end the white-collar corruption. End it. Because at least 50% of our annual budget is stolen. And everybody knows that. And nobody does anything about it. The Progressive Empowerment Party will. And if you vote for us on August 10th in sufficient numbers for us to fix this country, we will show you how long 5 years could really be. We will show you how in one 5-year term, all schools could be made prestige schools. The $5 billion that we spend every year on public health could be reduced to about $2.5 billion and still deliver 41 accident and emergency healthcare facilities operating 24/7 in every constituency. We will abolish the local government system, the regional health authority system, the THA, the police precinct model, and replace them with a responsive constituency board of supervisors made up of a supervisor of public works, public utilities, education, healthcare, and security. Within the borders of your constituency, you would have management, real responsive management, funded at budget time to serve you, that could be fired if they don't. If that doesn't ring well with you, then you have red, you have yellow, you have the rainbow. But if you want a better country, this August 10th, whatever powers that be that decided that now is the time to cut a road for a real movement, me, Philip Edward Alexander, I was assembled for this. I'll gladly debate red and yellow. I've been asking them to debate. I'll go Balize House for the debate. You can ask the questions. We don't mind. We don't need to be scripted. We don't need to have an advanced viewing. When the media calls me to do an interview, I say, sure, when? Now? When we go on radio shows and TV shows, you ever notice as a politician, I always say when they ask if they want to open the phone lines, I say, sure. None of the others would do that. They wouldn't dare do that because they'd have to answer to you. And they loathe answering to you. A Progressive Empowerment Party government would engage in constitutional reform that gives you a fixed election date so that no political party would have an advantage over another, and that you would know 5 years from today there would be an election. Prepare for it. We would separate the legislature from the executive, so your member of parliament could be nothing else but a member of parliament, not a minister, not a parliamentary secretary, nothing. Your member of parliament serving you on the ground, providing oversight for CEOs hired to run the important ministries that go to make up a life for everybody in this country. In 5 years, we would give water for all in quick time, transform the insanity of our wash the water to sea system, and capture, hold, treat, distribute within your constituency. Within 5 years, all of our schools would become prestige schools. We would abolish the SEA, make our schools 10-year schools. So children and parents would grow with teachers and administrators over the course of the child's academic career. And lifelong friendships would be forged within the community. All of these things that you know in your heart is the right thing to do, ask yourself, why the red and the yellow has never done it? Why has neither Kamala nor Keith secured this nation's borders? Why? Hundreds of millions of dollars of cocaine washed through this country and has corrupted all our offices of state. 50,000 guns. At least 57 of our women have been trafficked out of this country because of 100,000 Venezuelan refugees. How is this any way to run a country? And again, why has neither secured the borders? Is it because stunt after stunt, friend after friend, financier after financier, because both have a man that represents a boat building company that could sell us ships when each one is in office for kickback and commission? And aren't you fed up of being ridden like a donkey by two political parties who have no interest in serving you according to the Chamber of Industry and Commerce, and that their only interest is feathering their own nest? If you want a better Trinidad and Tobago, you're going to have to vote for it. And for the first time in this country's history, you can say, without fear of contradiction, you have a party that is disconnected from the contract mafia, with no recycled politicians, real policy, real candidates. And if you give us a chance, we will give you the country you always knew we were always meant to be. On August 10th, save TNT. Vote PEP.